According to Wikipedia, a distortion is the alteration of the original shape of something. If we expand and apply that definition in a universal way, we can say that something is distorted whenever its original existence, truth, intention, and meaning is altered or changed. Something that is distorted has lost its original way of being. What was brought into existence to be one way has become something else. It becomes a different version of itself. It loses its natural structure. It adopts a new identity, oftentimes a new purpose even. It becomes something different than originally intended. We all are distorted versions of ourselves. We all have distorted ways of thinking, feeling, perceiving, living, and existing that are far from our original truth of unconditional love. We have been disconnected from our natural state of being for so long that we have forgotten ourselves and the truth of our infinite eternal beingness. But we are here now to remember and return to our authentic selves outside of all distortions. Throughout our journey in this universe, we have experienced veils of concealment that constrict our awareness and limit the remembering of our pure state of being, our foundational and eternal existence, and the truth of who and what we are, so that we could experience distorted, fragmented versions of ourselves and reality. These are the greatest methods of teaching us about ourselves we could ever experience. Every incarnation we have experienced has had its own construct that limits our view and understanding of ourselves and life and creates distorted and limited ways of thinking and being. We purposefully veil our connection to our greater infinite self to experience what it's like to be finite beings with limited understandings of life and creation. All distortions result from a disconnection from our source, or more accurately, a lack of a conscious connection. Although being disconnected is ultimately an illusion, not having a conscious connection to our source of self creates the circumstances for living from a state of disconnection. Creating from a disconnected state of being means that we are not creating from or experiencing our natural state. Thus, we create artificial realities that we perceive as real experiences. For instance, death itself is a distortion. We are eternal beings that cannot ever die, yet we have incarnations where we experience the physical death of our forms. We experience fear of our mortality, but this is a distorted feeling because our true selves are not mortal. This universe was designed to show us these deepest distortions, these untruths we perceive as reality. Once we recognize them, they give us an invaluable perspective on our existence. Every experience and incarnation we have had in this universe has had its own distortions. Every incarnation has its own ego construct and its own physical, spiritual, ideological, experiential, environmental, and cultural constructs for interpreting experiences. These constructs are not capable of fully understanding, recognizing, and comprehending the unfiltered truth of experience, so they necessarily distort reality to fit inside the confines of their understanding. We carry these distorted aspects with us, and they manifest in our human experiences because we are here to now fully recognize and transcend these distortions. When we alchemize our distortions in our human vessels, we send an energetic signal that ripples throughout our universal aspects that hold the same distortions, that help these aspects integrate back with our eternal self. As human beings, we have layers and layers of distortions built into our identities that keep us from embodying our authentic selves. We begin somewhat as blank slates when born, but are quickly conditioned and assimilated into belief systems, societal and cultural norms, and collective structures and frameworks that influence how we view ourselves and our personal realities. We see ourselves within the boundaries placed on us by our environments. We are born into worlds where standards, roles, expectations, and judgments pressure us to become someone who is a product of the ecosystem we inherit. Our authentic selves are swallowed up by tidal waves of pressure that drown us in artificial identities. We internalize these artificial identities and criticize and demean ourselves when we don't feel we live up to these synthetic standards and expectations. Our self-esteem and self-worth become measured by distorted views and values. The more we adopt these standards, expectations, views, and values that aren't our own, the further we get from remembering our real selves. As we continue to develop and grow from a young age, we judge the experiences we have and incorporate them into our views of the world and understandings about ourselves. We then construct schema, or unconscious patterns of understanding and interpretation, based on our developed and conditioned views of our personal and social realities, and apply them to our experiences that further constricts the lens we view life. We also inherit and develop automatic thinking patterns and emotional responses that help us judge situations and influence how we act and behave. For instance, if we feel threatened and fearful, then there's a good chance that we are going to view situations and people as more dangerous than they actually are, and we're going to act defensively. The issue is that these developed patterns and techniques of judging and interpreting reality, which are evolutionary adaptive developments to help us survive, are often distorting our views of ourselves and reality. The purpose of saying all this is to make clear that our experience of life is filtered through these different psychological, social, cultural, and biological frameworks, and all of them distort the full picture of reality somehow. If we want to access our authentic selves and reality, we have to be aware of these systems of interpretation and how they condition our views and influence how we perceive and understand our reality. Our insecurities, triggers, fears, jealousies, yearnings, and emotional sensitivities all indicate distorted ways of viewing ourselves and our experiences. If we dare journey into these feelings, we can uncover the wounds that are twisting how we perceive. They ultimately come from a place of not feeling whole, a place of not feeling safe, accepted, or loved. Yet to feel we lack any of these things is an illusion. The first step to transcending any distortion is to become aware of what is at the root of our perceptions, biases, feelings, sensitivities, and beliefs. We need to be aware that there are innumerable factors influencing how we interpret and perceive our experiences. We should constantly be asking, why am I feeling, thinking, and believing this? Does it feel like this is coming from the depth of my being, of my soul that is always emanating unconditional acceptance and love? Or is something else influencing me from a distorted place of lack? By exploring the underlying motives of our distortions, we have the opportunity to obtain insight into aspects of our universal experiences in other incarnations. Everything we experience as humans and the distortions we carry represent significant experiences we have had in other realities. They are signposts we can use to help us remember aspects of ourselves and our universal journey, and what we still need to transcend. Because the human vessel is a fractal of all experiences of life in the universe, and the earth a fractal of all realities in the universe, we have the opportunity to recognize our distortions and transcend them in the flesh, while simultaneously transcending them on a universal scale. Our distortions on this planet are not products of accident. Our distortions are personal to us and our journey in this universe. As we are coming to terms with our distortions on an individual scale, humanity also has distortions to work through on a collective scale. It is up to us to recognize what is fake and artificial, what does not resonate with what we intuitively know and deeply feel as truth. The more layers of synthetic identity we remove, the more in touch we get with our authentic nature. The complexity of distorted identities is unnatural. When we return to our core essence, we feel the simplicity of ourselves. It is powerful and potent and pure. We have journeyed through countless realities and experiences where our truth was absent, and we lost ourselves in artificial identities. Now we are learning how to allow our authenticity to pierce any inorganic structure of life. We must retreat to the heart space to remember how to do this. It is our heart-soul connection with our innermost eternal self that holds the guiding light that exposes the shadow of every distorted way of being.